Emma never liked funerals. But she never imagined she would attend her own husband's. The morning of Daniel's funeral felt like walking through a thick fog. People hugged her, offered soft words, and touched her hands gently, but she barely heard any of it. Everything felt distant, like her body was present, but her heart was somewhere else. Lost and confused. When the service ended, most people left quietly. Only Emma remained seated at the front, staring at the empty space where Daniel's coffin had been moments ago. She still could not believe he was gone. Daniel had always been the strong one, the calm one, the man who fixed everything. And now, he wasn't here to fix her. As she stood to leave, Daniel's lawyer, Mr. Reynolds, slowly walked toward her. He was a kind man, gentle and soft-spoken, someone Daniel trusted for years. He held a small, sealed envelope in his hand. "Emma," he said softly, "Daniel asked me to give this to you personally. And he left clear instructions. You must open it alone." Emma stared at the envelope, confused. Alone? Why would Daniel say that? He had never kept secrets from her, or, at least, she believed he hadn't. Did he? Did he tell you what this is about? She asked. Mr. Reynolds shook his head. No. But he was very firm about it. He wanted you to receive this only after he passed. His words sent a strange chill through her. After he passed. It felt unreal to hear it said out loud. Emma nodded and took the envelope, gripping it gently, as though it might break. "Thank you," she whispered. She walked to her car, holding the envelope in both hands, staring at her name written in Daniel's handwriting. She recognized every curve of his letters, the way he wrote her name, with love. But today, it felt different. Heavy, secretive, full of something she was not sure she wanted to know. Inside the car, she sat quietly, staring at the envelope for several minutes. She wasn't ready. She wasn't ready to open anything that Daniel prepared in case he died. She wasn't even ready to accept that he was gone. Finally, after a few deep breaths, she slid her thumb under the seal and opened it. Inside was a single brass key, old-fashioned, heavy, the kind used for doors that haven't been changed in years. And beside it, a short handwritten note, 145 Willow Lane. Go alone. Emma blinked, reading it again and again, hoping she was misunderstanding something, but it was clear. Daniel had left her a key, and an address she had never heard of. Why? What was at that address? Why didn't he ever mention it? And why must she go alone? A familiar panic rose in her chest. She pressed her fingers to her forehead and closed her eyes, trying to calm her breathing. This didn't make sense. Daniel was open, warm, honest. He wasn't the kind of man who hid secret places or left mysterious instructions, unless he had a reason. Emma didn't believe in dramatic ideas, no secret affairs, no double life. Daniel wasn't like that. But the mystery of the key ate at her mind. If this place was important enough for him to hide it all these years, then she needed to know it. She started the car, but didn't drive yet. She simply sat there, looking out at the quiet street, wiping a tear that fell without warning. "Why didn't you tell me, Daniel?" she whispered. Her phone lay beside her. She picked it up, opened the Maps app, and typed 145 Willow Lane. Her heart thumped when the location appeared immediately. It wasn't far, only a 40-minute drive from her house. She frowned. How could something so close remain a secret all these years? She looked down at the key again. It was cold in her hand, but it somehow felt alive, heavy with meaning she didn't yet understand. Maybe Daniel didn't tell her because he wanted her to find it. Only after he was gone. Maybe he was protecting her from something. Or maybe It was something meant to bring her peace, not fear. Emma took a slow breath and placed the key inside her purse. She wiped her eyes, fixed her hair, and looked at herself in the mirror. She still looked broken. But inside those tired eyes was something. New determination. She deserved answers, and she was ready to find them. Emma drove out of the cemetery slowly, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. The envelope Daniel left sat on the passenger seat like a silent companion, almost staring at her. The key inside her purse felt heavier than any metal should. It wasn't just a key, it was a question, a secret. A part of Daniel she never knew existed. The sky was a soft grey, and the city looked washed out, tired almost, matching her mood. As she merged onto the main road, she whispered to herself, 40 minutes. I can do this. I need to do this. The road stretched ahead, long and empty. Normally, Daniel would sit in the passenger seat on drives like this, tapping his fingers on the window, telling stories, or making jokes to make her smile. Emma felt the absence of his presence so strongly that it almost hurt. She remembered a road trip they once took to the mountains. Daniel had leaned over and said, "As long as we're together, we can go anywhere." Emma swallowed hard. "Then why weren't we together for this?" she murmured. As she drove farther, the city gradually faded. Buildings became smaller. Streets became quieter. Trees grew thicker on both sides. She checked the navigation against Till. Pointing straight ahead, her mind wouldn't stop racing. Why a key? Why a hidden address? Why didn't he ever tell me? She tried to think logically. Maybe it was a surprise he didn't finish in time. Maybe it was something related to his past. Daniel never talked about his childhood much. He always slipped away from the topic gently, saying, "One day, I'll tell you everything, I promise." But that day never came. As she approached the outskirts of town, houses stood farther apart, older and quieter. The road narrowed, turning into a shaded path, lined with tall willow trees. The branches hung low, almost touching the windshield. The air seemed cooler. Still, Emma felt a shiver, not of fear, but of anticipation. Her GPS finally announced, "In 200 meters, your destination will be on the right." She slowed the car. Her heart beat louder. Her palms grew warm against the steering wheel. On the right side of the road stood a small wooden sign, almost hidden by leaves. Willow Leonie, the letters were faded, as if untouched for years. "Okay. This is it," she whispered. She turned into a narrow gravel driveway that crackled under her tires. At the end of the path stood a small house, silent, but strangely kept together. The paint was worn, but the windows were clean. The garden looked like someone once cared for it, but not recently. Emma parked the car and turned off the engine. Suddenly, everything felt too quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. She stepped out slowly, closing the door gently behind. The cool air brushed her skin, and the scent of damp earth filled her lungs. The key in her purse almost felt warm now, as if calling her. She stared at the house for a long moment. It wasn't scary, just lonely. Like Daniel had felt sometimes. Like she felt now. She walked up the small wooden steps to the front door. The wood creaked softly under her feet. Up close, she noticed small things. A delicate crack in the frame. A faint mark where someone used to turn the knob regularly. Who lived here? Did Daniel come here often? Why did he bring her to this place only after he died? Emma reached into her purse and pulled out the key. The brass looked more worn in the daylight, its edges smooth from years of use. She held it tightly and took a deep breath. "All right, Daniel," she whispered. "I'm here. I hope I'm ready for whatever this is." Her hand shook slightly as she slid the key into the lock. It fit perfectly, like it belonged there. Like Daniel had used it many times. She turned the key. The lock clicked. Soft, familiar, almost welcoming. The door opened a few inches on its own, as if the house was exhaling after being closed for so long. A faint smell drifted out, something gentle. Like old books mixed with cedarwood, Emma pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dim but calm. Dust floated in the air, glowing softly in the little light that slipped through the curtains. Everything inside looked untouched, frozen in time. A small table stood by the window. A chair, a lamp, and several neatly stacked boxes. Pangaea blinked. Her breath caught. These weren't random objects. They were organized. Placed with care, almost like Daniel had arranged them himself. Emma stood at the threshold of the small house, unable to move. At first, the air inside felt still, almost heavy, as if the room had been holding its breath for a long time. A quiet sadness hung in the space, but not the frightening kind. It felt gentle, familiar in a strange way. Like stepping into someone's memory. She finally stepped inside, her shoes making soft sounds against the wooden floor. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. And for a moment, she felt as though she had entered a different world, one that Daniel had kept separate, carefully protected. The living room was small, but clean. Not spotless, not new, but tidy. Someone had loved this place once. Someone had taken care of it. Emma's eyes drifted to the boxes stacked along the far wall. Each one was labeled, written in the same handwriting she had seen in the note. 1995, 19972, 001, 2010, and one box labeled simply Emma. Her breath caught when she saw her name. Asterisk. She walked closer, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Dust rested on the lids, but not thick, meaning someone had visited, but not recently. Maybe months. Maybe before Daniel got sick. Before she touched anything. She looked around the rest of the room. To her right sat a small round table with a lamp. The lampshade was faded, but the bulb inside still worked. She tried the switch, and warm light filled the space. It felt strangely comforting, as though Daniel himself had switched it on. Next to the lamp was a framed photo. She picked it up gently. It was Daniel, much younger than when she met him, maybe 10 or 11 years old. He was standing in front of a small brick building, holding a backpack that looked too big for his small shoulders. His smile was hesitant, almost forced. His eyes, those eyes she knew so well, looked sad. Emma frowned. Daniel had never shone. Her childhood photos. Not even one. She had always assumed he simply didn't have any because his childhood wasn't very special. But now, looking at this lonely boy in the picture, she realized there was more to it. She set the photo down gently and turned back to the boxes. She knelt beside the one labeled 1995 and carefully opened it. Inside were old notebooks, school certificates, a few small toys, and letters addressed to Daniel Harper. The handwriting on the letters looked different, some elegant and neat, others hurried and messy. Different people. Different years. She opened one letter. It was from a foster parent. Her eyes widened. So Daniel grew up in foster homes. He never told her. Not once in all their years together. A wave of emotion washed over her sadness for the little boy he once was. Confusion about why he kept it from her, and a strange tenderness that made her chest ache. She looked toward the other boxes. Some contained drawings, some had old jackets, some had simple objects like a watch, a bracelet, or an old music player with broken headphones. all small pieces of a past she never knew existed. And then her eyes returned to the box labeled Emma, her. Hands trembled slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside, everything was neatly arranged. The first item was a photo of her one Daniel took years ago when she wasn't looking. She remembered the moment. She had been watering her plants while he stood by the doorway, smiling at her. She didn't know he had captured it. He had kept it here. In this secret place, she found other things too. A ticket stub from their first movie date, a dried flower he once tucked behind her ear. A small card she wrote on his birthday, a napkin with a heart he had drawn, and at the bottom, enveloped with her name written on it. Clearly her throat tightened. This was different from the small one he gave her lawyer. This one felt heavier, full of words he never said. She sat on the floor slowly, holding the envelope in her lap. Her fingers hovered over the seal, but she didn't open it yet. She needed a moment. She needed to breathe. As she sat there, her gaze drifted around the room again. She noticed a small shelf on the left wall she hadn't seen before. On it were several journals, thick notebooks with worn covers. Daniel's handwriting covered every inch of their spines. Emma stood and walked toward them. She pulled one from the shelf and opened it randomly. Her eyes widened. It was Daniel's handwriting. But the contents were far more personal than anything he ever shared. He wrote about his childhood, his fears, his loneliness, his first day at yet another home, his hope to someday find a place where he truly belonged. And then, in later pages, he wrote about Emma. About how she changed everything. About how she became his home. Emma pressed her hand to her mouth, tears spilling without sound. She wasn't just discovering his secrets. She was discovering his heart. And she wasn't sure she was ready for what else she might find. P. and Foster. Homes. Many homes. Some kind people raised me. Some not so kind. I moved often, and I learned to hide my feelings. I learned to protect myself. But then I met you. And suddenly, my heart wanted to be open again. A tear slipped down Emma's cheek. She remembered the first time Daniel looked at her really. Looked at her hand. She saw something warm and bright inside him. She continued reading. I bought this small house years before I met you. Back then, I needed a place where I could put the pieces of my life, my memories, my fears, my hopes. A place I could try to understand myself. I never used it for anything except storing my past. When I met you, Emma, I stopped coming here as often. Because with you, I finally felt like I had a home. Emma's lips trembled. She looked around the room. Every corner felt full of emotion now. The boxes, the journals, the old childhood items, and then her own box, every piece chosen with love. She went back to the letter. I didn't tell you about this place, because I didn't want you to see me as broken. You saw my strength, my heart, my present self, and I wanted to protect you from my old wounds. Emma shook her head as she read. Oh, Daniel. You didn't have to hide anything, she whispered. The next lines felt heavier. Months before I died, the doctors told me my illness was getting worse. I didn't want to scare you, Emma. I didn't want to watch you worry every single day. So I stayed quiet, even though I know you would have cared for me with all your heart. Her breath caught. This was the part she feared. He had known. Pangaea carried the truth alone. I spent many evenings here at this house, writing letters, sorting through old things, trying to make peace with my life. I also prepared this place for you, hoping that if anything happened to me, you would come here and learn who I was before I met you. Emma wiped her face with her sleeve. Tears kept falling, but she didn't stop reading. There is a drawer. under the small table by the window. Inside it, you'll find recordings I made for you. Messages I wanted you to hear, if I couldn't say these words out loud. Emma turned her head slowly toward the table. She hadn't noticed a drawer. I want you to know this, Emma. You were the best part of my life. You gave me the love I never had. You made me feel seen, safe, and understood. If I kept my past hidden, it was only because your light was so warm that I didn't want to bring any darkness into it.
Key.
Emma covered her mouth as she sobbed softly. She could imagine Daniel sitting at a desk writing these words with love, but also Farathri of leaving her behind. She kept reading. My last wish is simple. Do not let this place fill you with sorrow. Use it for something good. I believe you will know what to do. Her eyes moved to the final lines. I love you. Emma, I always did. I always will. Emma folded the letter slowly, holding it close to her chest. She stayed like that for a long moment, letting the quiet room fill with her soft crying. When her tears finally slowed, she looked toward the small table by the window, the one Daniel mentioned. She walked toward it with careful steps. The drawer slid open smoothly. Inside were several small audio recordings, carefully labeled. But sitting on top was one more enveloped, this one thinner, with her name written in a slightly different way. Emma reached for it with trembling hands. She had no idea that this last envelope would reveal the deeper purpose behind everything Daniel left behind. Maria walked back to the small table in the hidden room, her hands shaking. The last envelope still lay there, untouched. She had saved it because she knew it held the answer to everything. Why Daniel built the studio, why he kept the recordings secret, why he left the key instead of telling her the truth himself. The envelope had only 2 words written on it. For Maria. She sat down slowly, took a deep breath, and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a long letter, Daniel's handwriting, neat but slightly shaky, as if he wrote it during his last days. Maria wiped her eyes and began to read. My love, if you are reading this, it means my time ended before I could say goodbye. Right way. I didn't tell you everything because I wanted to protect you not from danger, but from pain. The truth is, I knew about my illness long before you found me in the hospital. I didn't want you to see me break. I wanted you to remember me as the man who made you laugh every morning. Maria pressed her hand to her mouth. Hot tears ran down her face. Daniel's letter continued. I built this secret studio because I wanted to leave pieces of myself with you. Not sad pieces. Happy ones. Memories that would speak to you on the days you feel weak. The videos are not meant to replace me. Nothing could replace the life we had. They are only a small reminder that my love did not die with me. Maria paused, her chest tight, her breath unsteady. She looked around the room again. The lights, the camera equipment, the little objects from their life together. She finally understood. This room wasn't a mystery. It was a love letter, a final one. She continued reading. I gave you the key because I didn't want these messages to ruin you while I was still alive. I needed you to live beside me, not in my shadow, not waiting for the end. You deserved days filled with hope, not fear. I know you will cry when you see these recordings. That is okay. Cry, then stand up. Live for both of us. Maria felt her heart crack open at those words. She remembered the days after his death, how empty the house felt, how she walked like a ghost, how the world seemed colorless. But now, in this hidden room, reading his truths, hearing his voice, in the recordings, she felt something warm and alive inside her, something she thought she had lost forever. Love. Not the old love that hurt when she touched it, a new one. Quiet, strong, healing. There was one final paragraph at the bottom of the letter, short, simple, and written as if he were whispering it directly into her ear. Maria, my heart, my home. You must not stay stuck in the past. You have a future. I want you to smile again. I want you to meet people, to travel, to live freely. And when someone new comes into your life, and they will, do not push them away because of me. I will always be a part of you, but I never wanted to be the reason you stopped moving forward. My story ended, but yours is still being written. Let the next chapters be beautiful. Maria covered her face and sobbed. But these were not the sharp, painful sobs she cried the week he died. These tears were softer, more peaceful. Like rain washing dust from old windows, it took her a long time to finish crying. When she finally folded the letter, she felt something inside her shift, like a locked door quietly opening. She stood up and looked at the camera one last time. She pressed the power button, and the screen went dark. Then she picked up Daniel's ring from the table, held it to her heart, and whispered, "I'll live, Daniel. I promise." When she stepped outside the hidden room and locked the metal door behind her, the air felt different, warmer, brighter. She walked up the stairs and back into the world, not healed. Not perfect, but no longer broken. Later, she placed the key in a small box and kept it near her bedside. Not as a reminder of loss, but as a reminder of love, strong enough to guide her even after death. For the first time since Daniel died, Maria opened a window, let sunlight fill the room, and breathed without pain. Her life was not over, it was just beginning. Asterisk.